Vince Carini here again, and I just want to say America runs on Dunkin', the non-official sponsor of CNC Adventures. How you doing? This is Vince Carini with CNC Adventures, and we're going to teach you today on how to pack for a bass fishing trip. I'm going to show you what I typically bring, rod and reel wise, and then we're going to do an expanded backpack view of my 80-pound fishing backpack with all of its lures, hooks, and weights, and all the types of lines that I use and how I set up my reels. So the first rod and reel setup that I'm going to show you is my G Loomis E6X bass fishing pole. It's a 6'6", medium heavy fast action pole, and I have a Shimano Hanen bait casting reel on it. It has a 7.1 gear ratio for fast retrieval. Let's get into what I got on here. What we have right here, I have 20-pound Power Pro braid fishing line on here with 15-pound monofilament backing on the reel. It helps with backlash, keeps the braid tight in the spool, kind of prevents the bird nesting. What I have on here is a Zoom Super Fluke plastic bait on a Gamakatsu offset weighted hook, and I have it rigged up weedless. I'm going to undo it backwards so that you can see how I have it rigged. If the bass comes and tries to hit this lure, it's going to be coming from the back because you're jigging it up and down. So the bass is going to come like this, and the top of its mouth is going to bend and expose that hook there. And if you see the eye of the hook is perfectly streamlined with the bottom of the hook, and that makes that nice weedless presentation here. And as you can see, you have this bottom weight. I believe it's either a quarter of an ounce or 3/8. I can't remember. Pretty sure it's a quarter. But that action is nice. When you catch a fish on this hook, if you know, when you set that hook and the hook is coming out the top of the fish's mouth, you did it perfectly. And that's how that is. It's great for being in weeds, great for casting into lily pads if they're not hitting top water. Really, it's a hot temperature bait, but you could really use this at any time. If the fish are deep, be patient with it. You can let it sink, switch it up the bottom. If you got to work beds and pre-spawn, you know, you can cast right on top of the shoreline, drag it right over the bed, and it's a nice reaction bait because let's say if the bass aren't feeding, you can get a reaction bite out of this because what it does is when you pop it up, while it's a Zoom Super Fluke, it darts down, and if you're twitching if you're twitching on the bed and you just so happen to bounce it up and it darts towards the bass, you're gonna get that defense bite. You're gonna get that. It's gonna fucking really get in there, and you're gonna. If that hook's coming out the top of the mouth, it means you set the hook right. This pole here, this is a Shimano Corrado. This is a 7-foot medium heavy fast action. The reel is a Daiwa Tatula with the T-Wing guide release. When you push the button on this baitcaster, I'm going to come in a little closer to the camera so you can see. You have the eye on the reel, the guide. When you push that button, that T opens up, and it allows you to cast a little farther, helps with backlash, helps with all the birds nesting. Just a really nice guide. I really prefer these Daiwa Tatula reels. Everybody's got a preference, but between the cast control and the lure weight control braking system, this is just a superb reel. That's why I own 2 of them. This one has a 6.3 retrieval rate. I like the slower retrieval rate on this pole because I use it for jigging, and I try to keep my jig out there as long as I can. So this here jig, this is a 3/8 jig head. I have a black and blue craw on here with a little bit of yellow and black on the hair. It's kind of like a mix between using a dark bait and a high vis bait. I try to use this bait to figure out what kind of color combo or what kind of color is working best that day. You know, what I'll do is if I catch a fish on this, I'll have 2 poles set up, one with a high vis bait and one with a low vis bait. You know, these darker colors, and then I'll bounce around between the 2 to see what kind of lure color combination is going to work best that day. But this is a lure that I always catch on. You got to work them slow, and they typically hit when you're coming back down from the jig. Rarely will they pick it up off the bottom. When you bounce that jig up, it's kind of like what I was talking about with the Zoom Super Fluke. When you bounce that jig up, you're going to get like a reaction bite. See, what this is imitating is a crawfish. Crawfish swims backwards. That's why you have the claws on this bait sticking out towards the back. They use their tail to like lunge forward a little bit. They don't have a steady swim. So when you bounce this up, the bass thinks, okay, now this is my time to strike on this crawfish, because of that natural reaction that's in the bass's instinct. When a crawfish does that jellyfish-like lunge, it's exposing itself. It's making itself vulnerable, and the bass is going to attack it when it's vulnerable. So this is the jig, 3/8. I typically don't go heavier than that with the jig head. There's really not a need to, unless you're fishing deep and you want to get down there fast. But I'm a patient fisherman. This next pole here, this is a St. Croix Triumph. It's 6'6", medium heavy, fast action pole. The reel on here, this is the fastest reel I own. It is another Daiwa Tatula, but this is an 8.1 gear ratio reel. It's a super, super fast retrieval rate. This is my top water setup. I use frogs. I use rage tail frogs. Typically, this only sees frogs and poppers, jitterbugs, whopper ploppers. Just about any kind of top water bait you can think of is what I throw on here. I got a jitterbug on here right now. One of my favorites. Not really good for throwing it to cover because of how the hooks are exposed. It's not a weedless bait. But if you typically, when you're running along the weed line on the surface, you can get a reaction bite out of it. It's a lot of fun. But a lot of fish on this pole. I've had it for about, I want to say I've had this pole for about 8 years. Seen tons of action, never had a problem with it. It's got plenty of character on it, plenty of little scratches here and there, but St. Croix, as they say, make the best rods on earth. This is a Daiwa Arid. Not a particularly popular pole, but a very pretty pole. Very sensitive. This is a 6'6" fast action pole. It's a medium. It's not a medium heavy. It's a little noodlier at the tip. And this is a very diverse pole. I use this for a lot of plastics. I've jigged with this pole. It's not preferred to jig with a medium pole. You really want a medium heavy pole because you want the stiffness to feel that bite. Typically on the jigs, you won't feel the bite unless you have a very stiff pole. This particular pole is I said it was noodly at the tip, and what I do is I like to run crankbaits, anything that has a waddle to it. That noodliness in the pole, it allows the bait to swim freely. It's not going to get resistance from the medium heavy stiffness of the other poles that I have. That medium heavy, it can almost restrict the movement a little bit on the pole, and you really want it to dance because what you're trying to do is piss shit off, right? And when you're using a crankbait, typically they have those little beads in it, and when it's waddling, it's actually rattling and emitting noise to try to anger fish, and you know, you're driving fish to hit your bite because you're fucking annoying. So with this pole, it allows the maximum amount of being annoying with this noodliness. What I have on here, this is another 3/8 chatterbait. Chatterbait, I don't know, a lot of my friends use it, but typically when I say chatterbait, a lot of people are like, what the hell is that? Chatterbait, if you can see, it's hooked up on that eye there, and you can see the blade is pointed up, right? With that blade being pointed up, as you bring it through the water, that blade kind of like sputters, and it does emit noise, but there's no beads. But what it does is it has a very, very fine vibration as it goes through the water, and when this tip is dancing, that's how you know you're working it right. And you can run this through weeds and stuff. When you're running it through weeds, you just give a nice like little tug on it, and usually it'll bounce right out. And these blades, depending on how hard you tip up, can even cut weeds. And it'll free you up, get you dancing again. As long as you feel that tip dancing, you're running it right. I've caught a lot of fish like this. Typically, On a chatterbait, you can put any kind of plastic bait you want on the back of here, but I like to use the paddle tail because with the vibration that the front blade emits, the paddle tail dances very nicely in the water. Nice reaction bait out of the fish. This pole is a pole that I have not used in a while, but it is another topwater pole. I do a lot of topwater fishing in the late summer. Typically, in the late summer, the water's been heated up gradually over the summer, and water temperatures like 70, 80 degrees on the surface. You're gonna get a nice topwater bite out of that lake or river or wherever you're fishing, pond. Bugs on the surface, you hear the frogs croaking, it's topwater time. This pole is an Abu Garcia Silver Max. Not the most expensive pole, but a good quality pole for the money. This is a medium action as well. It's not medium heavy like that St. Croix I was using, but this has a little bit of noodliness. I would prefer to use a dancing topwater lure on this because of the noodliness, like that jitterbug I had on the St. Croix, because on the top of the water, that jitterbug, it waddles, and you want it to have that freedom. If you use too stiff of a pole, you're going to restrict that waddle, and then what you're doing is you're just running something on top of the water, and then it's not dancing. You want it to dance, you know. But this also, all these poles, 20-pound braid Power Pro, 15-pound monofilament backing. Big fan of using braid. I like ripping stuff out of the weeds and keeping my lures. You know, using one of the most common monofilaments that are used in bass fishing is 8-pound extra tough by Tri-Line. A lot of guys use 10-pound, 15-pound. It can break. You know, I really like to use that. I really like to use braid, and especially for the sensitivity advantage. Monofilament, yes, it is sensitive. It is a standard line, but you cannot compare the sensitivity advantage of a braided line versus a monofilament line. A lot of guys use fluorocarbon leaders at the bait. If you notice, I tie my braid directly to the lure. It has not restricted any fish for me. I catch a decent amount of fish. I want to brag, but the fluorocarbon leader, I think it's a point of preference. I'm sure it helps at some point. I could see for trout fishing, because trout can actually see fishing line pretty well. Fluorocarbon leader is probably necessary in that scenario, but bass fishing, they're just bulldogs. They just want to eat. They don't care. They eat rats, frogs, ducks, anything that they can fit in their mouth. So I don't think my 20-pound braid is going to inhibit what's going in their mouth. All right. I got some fancy stuff on the handles here. They're called power grips. On this particular reel, which is a Quantum, by the way, this is the Quantum EXO. It's a bit of an older series reel. I probably had this reel for about 8 years. It's got a 7.1 gear ratio. It's super, super light. That's why Quantum called it the EXO, because they figured this is just the exoskeleton, bare bones of a bait casting reel. It's very high quality. This does not have a cast distance control. It only has the braking system for the lure. But what I have to say is this reel is such a sensitive instrument that you can't, if you go into your cast, you can't whip it. You have to gently push that button and just like ballet. Like if you whip it, your bird's nest. If you gently toss it, you got a 60-yard cast. No problem. You don't even expect it. It seems weird, but it's lovely. And these reel grips, I got them a while ago. The only reel I have them on. This particular reel, it came with the reel grips are almost like a neoprene, not like a typical silicone plastic hard handle. I wanted to protect them because this reel is a little bit pricey. It was a $250 reel at the time I bought it. I don't know what they are today, but I just wanted to keep it nice. And if you care about your reels, reel grips are real nice. But yeah, caught plenty of fish. It's a gentle cast. You can fish with this all day. It's a very light setup. This is probably one of the lightest setups I own, but it's because of that Quantum EXO PT. Quantum EXO PT, and you could really burn in topwater baits with this reel. You know what? I think I may just set this up for my next fishing trip, because I just realized how much I miss this reel. All right, well, you've seen my main fishing poles. If I were to do a tournament, I would probably bring these 5 poles. Um, they're not the top of the line, but they're my top. Paid for all these myself. I've had some of these things I've had since I was a kid, and they have stayed tried and true all 25 years I've been fishing. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the next segment, which will be my tackle bag. It weighs about 85 pounds. We're going to open up some boxes. We're going to look at soft baits. We're going to look at jigs. We're going to look at crankbaits. We're going to look at all different types of top water baits, all coming out of this bag here. Bag's not going to be really much in the next video, but this bag I got on Amazon. It was $85 at the time. It might be a little bit more expensive now. I had this bag for 7 years by Wild River. Got it on Amazon. I have Prime, so got it in 2 days. It was real nice. All right. How you doing? Vince Carini here. We're now going to do the lure half of this video. I've laid out some of my most popular baits for you guys to see. There's way too much stuff in here to unload and show you everything. We could probably do another 10 videos just on what I have in this bag. It weighs about 85 pounds. All right, so what we have here, we're going to dive right into it. We're going to start with the chatterbait. What we have here is a white chatterbait, 3/8 jig head. I have on here a Keitech Reaction swim bait. If you can see, it's got segments in the tail for dancing very nicely. It's going to go back and forth like that. And the blade up front assists with that natural swimming function. The Keitech swim bait here, these segments in the back, they really make a difference in presentation of this bait. Here we have a Rapala crankbait. You can kind of hear the jingle. There's a lot of balls in there. This thing probably, there you go. This thing probably swims about 5-7 feet down, depending on how hard you crank it. But this color combination, the white with the blue on top with the yellow stripe, even it's got the little shad dot. This is a fantastic bait. It's got great reaction, great color. It's called Plenty of Fish. Probably had this lure about 10 years. This is my favorite popper. There are many poppers like this one, but this one is mine. This is the Rebel popper. It's very simple. They've been around forever. Who knows how many years they've been around. The packaging still looks like it's from the 70s. Probably the cheapest popper in the store. It's going to catch the most fish. Got the rattle. The fluorescent inside, very easy to see from the boat that you're casting from. If you're casting from shore, same thing. They always do a fluorescent mouth. Most poppers do. They do the red, or they do a bright orange. This one's bright orange. Very easy to see from the boat, even in low light, and you get a great splash, great pop out of it. This is my favorite size to use. Poppers come in all different sizes, very small, very large. This size is perfect. Catches a wide variety of size of fish. I've caught pickerel, crappie, bluegill. Not preferable to catch bluegill, but bass, smallmouth, all different types of freshwater fish. They hit this. I've even used these in saltwater. We'll be getting into saltwater next week, but in saltwater, I've even cast these into the shallows, foot of water, pulling out big fish in saltwater with the Rebel popper. This is a very diverse topwater lure. This is called the Zara Spook. And what you do is, you hear that rattle. A lot of these lures have that rattle. You rattle it right on top of the water. You keep moving it. You don't stop. Well, you can stop it, but it's good to keep what's called chugging. What you're chugging, you're bringing it across the top of the water, pissing everything off in the area. Great reaction bait. If you're from New Jersey, Lake Hopatcong, you can throw these out. You got to get out on the water real late at night, probably around 11 o'clock at night. The hybrid striped bass and Lake Hopatcong feed at that time. And what you could do is scan the lake, find where they're feeding on the bait fish in there, and you run this right across the top, and you're guaranteed to either hit a large hybrid striper or even a walleye. Walleye, since they're kind of blind, the walleye will take a few strikes at it, and once in a while they'll get lucky and hit your lure, and then you get lucky. Here we have a standard jerk bait. This also has the rattle, got enough teeth, got enough hooks on it to take down a small country, and I like to use the white. This is a Bass Pro Shops XPS lure jerk bait. And what you want to do with these lures, you kind of want to have some patience. You reel it in a little bit, you get line tension, and you give it a jerk, and it like dances around like it's injured, like it can't swim right. Right now, I'd like to thank our most recent partner, Jackery, for taking us on. Thank you very much. If you guys are interested in what Jackery is, type in jackery.com. They're a fantastic company. They make a wide variety of products geared towards the outdoorsman, whether you hunt, fish, camp. They got almost anything for every situation. Fantastic company. Like, share, subscribe on them as well as us. And we just want to give you guys a shout out and say thank you. All right. We're going to dive into our next lure. This is a nice topwater frog. This is a weedless setup. If you could see, it's very similar to the Zoom Super Fluke I showed you in the previous segment, where the bass is going to come up from behind this and bite down on that body, and it's going to expose the hooks. On this particular lure, I like to bend out the hooks a little bit out of the package. Kind of guarantees a better hook set. You're going to get more fish. You're not going to miss them. The other thing I like to do is I like to cut the tassels a little bit shorter. What sometimes I found, if you're working it slow and the bass is timid, by shortening those fish up, the bass is going to lunge forward, more forward naturally, and he's going to want to really swallow that frog. So shorten them up, bend the hooks out, you're going to get a bite. This is another topwater frog, different style. This one's a little bit better on the weedless setup. This is actually by Bass Pro Shops, XPS frog, and it has the little flapping tails. They do a nice ripple when you're burning it out of the lily pads, weed line, tall grass, whatever. Really nice reaction bait, very tough. You can catch at least 10 fish on this lure before you have to change it. All right, and it's the same style hook set where the bass is going to come up from behind and pinch that belly, exposing the hook. Fantastic bait. This is a little Rapala crankbait. Maybe you run this in about 2-3 feet of water. What I really like about this bait is the feathering on the rear treble hook. That red, I feel like it makes a difference. I love having stuff with red on it. Any kind of little red detail, I feel like it just has a better injured presentation. It's a weak fish, you know. This particular lure has enticed many fish to bite. It has a really nice dance on it, and it's accredited to its downward facing short bill, which you can see at the very front of the lure. It really causes the ass of the lure to really swing, if that makes sense for you. Great lure. What we have here is a traditional wacky worm setup. The little hula action, you just dance it nice and slow. This works in any season. This is a tried and true lure setup. You could fish for bass year round with this. The one thing that I like to do differently is, if you see, I have a red hook on it. I told you I love red detail. It's my thing. I love red hooks. I love red presentation. I don't know, something about blood in the water. This lure, black and white worm, black worm, blue flake is what I meant to say. And of all the worms I've tried, this gets the best reaction out of the fish, this color combination. Back to the Zoom Super Fluke, a little bit of a different presentation. This is on a jig head, fishing deep water. I want to get down there quick. Let's say I'm working a school of bass that's fast moving. I'm trying to chase them. This is going to get down there fast, and it's going to have that dive reaction, get a quick fish response. This is a very similar lure to what I just showed you with that jig head and the Zoom Super Fluke. This is called a Bingsky. This gets down there fast. This is a 3/8 jig head. And what's really nice about the Bingsky is that if you can see those 4 slots on the top of the lure, you can actually change how much this lure dances as you're swimming it. I have it on the rear setting because that is the most dance. I like aggressive baits. I run aggressive baits because I like to get in there, be an asshole, and start a fight. This is a Creature lure by Gary Yamamoto. This is designed to mimic anything and everything that could be down there. This could imitate a craw. This could imitate a worm. This could imitate any kind of anything that's down, that's lurking on the bottom, that dives down, anything like that. And it's just got all these different things to piss off the bass. I love it. Been using this lure for years. I have it rigged weedless on a Gamakatsu hook. I believe this is a number 4 hook. That's my standard across all my soft baits, and it's got that same reaction where the fish bites the top and exposes that hook. That's what you want. You want hooks coming out the top of the mouth, and that's how you know you're a pro. Have a nice day.